Alrighty, groovy. So I'll do the quick little intro, and we will go from there. Just got to pull up the notes. Where did the notes go? I knew that's not it. David, is the
Show dog
list updated on the?
Let's see here.
Computer.
If we use the one from Acme City, will that work?
That should work. Yeah. Let me see.
That's a pretty old one.
All right, I'll punch it in later. All right, in 3, 2.
You're watching Diecast Breakdown with Chuck Ellis, David Johns, and Mark McHotwheel. So sit back, strap in, and hang on. The breakdown starts now.
Well, hey there, folks. Chuck here, and welcome to Diecast Breakdown, the only diecast podcast on the internet that I've been told. We are really excited to have you here today. We are especially excited to have our executive producer level patrons joining us. They are names to be inserted here.
David Johns, DrivenDreams.org, Elevation Diecast Racing, Jay Goldenberg, Christian Stonyland, Luis Tanahara, Reviews Through Another Lens, Weber Brothers, and new production assistant level patron Russell Lassen.
And if you want to know how you can join their ranks, you can visit diecastbreakdown.com, or you can visit our Patreon page, or you can click the little join button, and that'll take you to the little thing on YouTube where you can give us some money if you like what we do and you want to help pay for all the fancy gear that we have to make this show go. We'd really appreciate it. And you can also, while you're over at diecastbreakdown.com, check out our merch. This shirt may look like I just rolled out of the garage, but it's actually brand spanking new and designed by my brother Justin. It is awesome. And all proceeds from that go to supporting him and his artwork. So check that out. And you can also find a link to drivendreams.org, our charity where we're raising 25,000 cars for kids in need in 2025. Check that out, drivendreams.org. And speaking of I'm not just talking about the mouse in my pocket. I am joined by my colleague, my co-host, my friend, David Johns. Mr. David Johns, how the heck are you today?
I'm great, Chuck. Diecast royalty in the house tonight. Super excited about this interview. Excited.
Yeah, we've been meaning to have this guest on for quite some time now, and she has finally graced us with her presence. I am so excited. Amy Boylan, thank you so much for being here. We are thrilled to have you on Diecast Breakdown.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here. Diecast royalty. Wow, that's impressive.
You heard it. I said it.
Thank you.
Put you right up there. I would say if there was a Mount Rushmore of diecast people, you would be a good contender for that list. So yeah, but there's a big new thing in town called Kilo Wheels, and we're going to get to that in just a second because we are really excited about that. I was just on Facebook today, saw the proofs. I think was it Brian that posted the proofs of the Bronco?
Yeah, Brian Pope.
Yeah, Brian Pope, previous guest on Diecast Breakdown. He was posting some pictures of the new Bronco they've got coming out. Very cool design, and we are going to be talking about that in a little bit. But first, for those who have lived under a rock, say, let's talk a little bit about Amy. So, Amy, you go back just a little bit, a year or two in this industry. Tell me how you got started in the world of cars in general. Was it just, did you always grow up interested in cars? Where did that inspiration come from?
I mean, I grew up at a great time, right? So in New York, you can't drive till you're 18. So when I was 18, it was the 70s, and I lived on a block. It's almost like it's like a weird thing. We lived on a block with a dead end, and there were 9 of us, and each one of us had what I would consider today as a high-end classic car. So my dad loved Chevys. And in 68, he bought a 1968 SS Chevelle that my mother used to drive to the grocery store. That was our weekend car. And he had a beater that he would take to the to business. So that's the car I learned how to drive on. And then when I turned 18 and graduated from high school, my grandmother bought me a 71 Challenger RT, black with white RT stripes, 380 slapstick. I love that car. But I was always a Chevy girl. One day I met a guy who had a 68 Camaro convertible. Actually, the convertible had a heart-shaped back window. It was a little interesting. But it was a 396 Hurst 4-speed. And at the time, they were called N60s on the rear. They looked like steamroller tires. And so I traded him for the Challenger. He wanted the Challenger. He gave me the Camaro.
Nice.
So I came home with it. And the first thing my father said to me was, do you know there's a gas strike on? I mean, that Camaro got literally 10 bucks to a gallon. But it was the best car. It was a convertible. I was 18 years old. I mean, it was the best. So I stayed pretty much a GM girl my whole life until I went to Shelby.
Wow. Oh, that's really cool. And so you take that love of the big cars. Where does the tiny car world start for you?
Well, Mattel hired me in 98 to, at the time, I was making video games in Maryland. And I was making what I would consider hardcore PC games. I was working on games like M1 Tank Platoon. I was working on a Myst game. I was working on, no, not Myst. Cut that out. It wasn't Myst. It was Magic the Gathering. I was working for Microprose. And Microprose was famous for doing a whole bunch of high-end, really amazing games like Civilization. So at the time, I was what you would call a fixer. I would go to a studio, get them back on track, then I would leave after 3-4 years, and I'd go to another studio. When Mattel called me, they wanted me to build a software division for kid games, which honestly was a bit of a stretch for me to go from, a game like Civilization and their upgrades to Barbie hair and makeup.
Right.
Right.
But we did some really great games. We went outside the box a little bit. We had a bunch of great licenses at the time. Mattel had Disney and Caterpillar. And we made a game for Caterpillar that I just thought was brilliant at the time for kids, where a kid would come home from school to do his homework, and he would hop into a Caterpillar truck and go back in time and help 1 week it would be help the Egyptians build the pyramids. Wow. And so he would learn all about the Egyptians by helping them build the pyramids. Another week he would go back in time and help build the Panama Canal. So we weren't just making fluff games, we were also trying to educate kids and have fun at the same time. But then in 2000, Mattel bought the Learning Company, and that didn't work out. And that's about the best way I can say it. So Mattel wasn't allowed to make software anymore for 8 years due to the SEC. So I was going to leave. I had a parachute, actually, because I helped them sell off all the Learning Company's software divisions. And my boss at the time, Matt Busquet, he was president of All Boys. And I, at the time, was senior VP. And he said, I'll make a deal with you. If you stay and think of ways to make money for the boys group, I'll keep all your people. We won't lay them off. Which, for me, that was a big plus. Because I had 16 people who were going to be unemployed if I left.
Yeah, no pressure.
So I said, okay, I'll stay. So we made an online game for kids called Planet Hot Wheels, and kids and adults could race. And we kept the kids separate because, of course, safety reasons. But you could race your Hot Wheels. I talked the marketing group into putting numbers on the dollar car. You put that number in the game and you got that car. And you could win prizes. You could win lunch boxes, you could win hats, you could win t-shirts. And on the adult side, they won adult gifts, baseball hats, jackets, t-shirts. And we did really well with it. It was an amazing game. But then I had to figure out how to make money, like real money. And I said to my team, there was 3 of us. At the time, there was Dave Sanders and Brian Fitzgerald and John Ludwig. And I said, there's a lot of Hot Wheel collector groups out there on the web. I mean, the web was very archaic at the time. There was no Facebook, no social media. And I said, we should make a group for collectors, but make sure all the other collector sites are taken care of so they don't go away when we build our site. And one of my staff, who I won't mention, said to me, we don't talk to them. I said, what do you mean we don't talk to them? He said, we don't talk to them. They're weird. So I said,
my gosh.
I said, well, okay, but I'm a collector of things. I guess I'm weird. I said, look, they spend a lot of money on Hot Wheels. Don't we want to tap into that and find out what they think, what they like, what they don't like? So we built the Hot Wheel collector group first. And then my guys got very excited. We started doing the conventions. And then I said, okay, time to make money. We made the Redline Club. And the first car was a disaster. The cardboard got crumpled. Then I had to do an apology car called the Roger Dodger apology car. And then we learned how to do things better. And I went to the factories and I found all the original Redline molds. And so all the Redline Club cars for the first 2 years were the original Redline molds.
Wow.
Yeah. It was great. And we numbered the cars. We did the vending machine where you spent literally $10 and you got a $50, $200 car. It was all about the collectors. My mindset always was, if you do right by the collectors, you will always make money. It can't be money first. It has to be about the collectors first.
Sure.
And if they're happy, the money comes. I mean, it's just the right way to do business. So we were doing really well. And then in 2003, I'm not gonna say it was a mistake, but for me personally, knowing the person that I am, it was a mistake to take the role of running Hot Wheel Adult. So I became the executive vice president in charge of Hot Wheels. And that role usually goes to somebody with a marketing degree, which I didn't have. And I had all these young marketing people, and I didn't think like them. That was one of the issues. I used to say to them, don't give me a 3-inch deck to tell me how you're selling the brand. 1 page per product. If you can't sell it to me in 1 page, you can't sell it on the box. It was a little difficult. Plus, I'm not very political. If you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you the answer. So I'd have to do every Monday, I'd have to do the round table with Matt and all his other VPs and SVPs who were very political. And, Matt would always say to me, you should just call them out. Just call them out. And so I did. And then Matt would always say, do a good job, make a lot of money, and I will always back you up. And he always did. And then one day he called me up. It was early 2005. He said, I'm going to leave, and you should leave a week before me. So I said, I think that's a good idea. So he left June 15th, and I left June 1st.
Wow.
I left everything in the hands of my guys, and they did okay. And Ray Adler, who I always said, was a savant in Hot Wheels. He could tell you where every car was made and what year it was made. And he now has been running games and puzzles and Uno for I'm going to say 20 years. He's brilliant. He's a brilliant marketing guy.
Back with more Diecast Breakdown after this word from our sponsors. Legendary Hollywood concept artist and designer Fireball Tim Lawrence has created 3 exclusive pieces of automotive art based on the 3 hosts of Diecast Breakdown. Get these and other brilliant designs printed on mugs and more at fireballtimgarage.art today.
Cast Heads Magazine is a digital publication dedicated to enhancing the lives of collectors all across the world by providing information on new models, reviews on brands and diecast accessories like figures and dioramas, throwing light on customizers, photographers and people who contribute to making the diecast world vibrant. Subscribe to Cast Heads for free and look for collaborations with Diecast Media Network at castheadsmagazine.com.
And now back to Diecast Breakdown.
Amy, as we get started heading toward you painting, setting the table for what we can expect for Kilo.
Yeah.
I want you to think back of your vision for the Redline Club. And I got to say right now, it is absolutely refreshing to hear that the collectors had such a prominent point of your attention when you set the thing up. So when you look back on when you were pouring all your energy into getting the RLC into this thing that it became, give me your 1 or 2 like bullet points on what you wanted it to be and what your vision was, and then we're going to look at how that baby has evolved a little or tweaked with what we're looking at now.
Well, back then, I mean, really in 2002. There wasn't that much competition. There was Hot Wheels, there was Matchbox. Jada was doing dub type cars. There was Johnny Lightning. And cars were definitely not as sophisticated as they are today, right? But the thing about Hot Wheels was I wanted to, because the basic thing about the collectors was they love the brand because they grew up with the toys. So I wanted to bring back what they loved about the toys. So all metal castings, nickel axles, real rubber tires. And Mattel hadn't done any of that for a very long time. And also it was too expensive to be in the dollar line. And it didn't fit the adult line. The adult line was a completely different animal. So, and at the time I wasn't in the adult line. So I said, okay, we're going to find all the molds. I went to the factory and they said, look, you can't make millions of cars out of these molds, but you probably can make 3, 4, 500,000 out of these molds. And I said, okay. So we brought back nickel axles. We brought back real rubber tires, but wide rubber tires, not the other ones they were making. Mm-hmm. And we tried to deco them so they didn't, and we made a package that looked like the vintage package, but not quite.
Yep.
And we wanted the collectors to look at that car and say, I love that car. I have that car in my collection, but this is different. Because also, you couldn't make a Spectre Flame in 2002 because the original Spectre Flame was very shiny because it was made with lead, which I learned from the factory. So we had to come up with another way to make the chrome and the Spectre Flame look really cool. So it took a couple of months to figure it out, but then the cars in the beginning were very simplistic. Not a lot of deco. Quite frankly, we didn't have an artist. And at the time, we asked the design team, the head of the design team, if they would design for us. And they said no. And we asked marketing in Hot Wheels if they would help us. And they said no. So I went to the factory and did everything myself, which didn't make me very popular. And then I called up American Girl, who was only selling online back in the day. And I said, can you mail cars out? Because we're Mattel and we don't know how to mail anything. And they said, oh, yeah, we'll mail for you. I said, okay, great. So Amy and team had this little business going from the basement of a building, not in the tower. So we were doing great. We were selling cars. We were listening to collectors. We numbered the cars right out the gate. We changed the color every 5,000 pieces because that made sure that everybody got a car. No bots, no paying extra for a special program so you get a car. And I get what Mattel is doing today, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, think because they're a big corporation, I sometimes think it's harder for them to do what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to do it because one, I had a very high title.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I could just, and I'm used to fixing businesses. So it was easy for me to figure out how to get around the system and do everything.
Yep.
So, and also, most people don't take the chances I did because they're afraid of losing their job.
Sure.
You
Well,
know?
yeah. And you get a system in place. It's very hard to change it once a company gets happy with that system. I heard Mike Zarnock, who we'll talk about more in a little bit, explain why he had a very good explanation for why the Redline Club does what they're doing now that he gave at I think it was the Collector Nationals. I heard him give this during a talk, but basically it has to do with manufacturing and speed of manufacturing and getting it out to the people in the right time and having a set amount of stuff. And, you know, it made sense. And a lot of people like to gripe and complain about it. I think the system's fine. If you can get it, great. If not, that's part of the game. I think it's really cool. And I want to, before we move too much further, go back a little bit because I didn't know. I knew you did a lot of stuff on the digital side. I didn't realize you had this like gaming history. So not that we're going to talk about this because this isn't a gaming show too much,
Right,
but
right.
because we jumped from you're racing down the street in a Camaro with street slicks to it's the late 90s and you're working at Hot Wheels, but somewhere between that you got into the software game. So where did that digital background come from?
Well, I started working. I quit college to go help my dad in business. He was sort of winding down. He wanted to do it 2 more years, and he didn't want to pay for a lot of help. He was trying to do it by himself. And so I quit school to help him. And when he retired, I didn't want to go back to school. So I took a job for a company that approved back in the day. If you used a credit card, they made a phone call if it was over $50 to get approval on the telephone. And that was my first job. I was 22 or 3. And I worked midnight to 8 paying credit cards.
Wow.
And from there, I think I've always been a bit of an overachiever. So, or a workaholic, however you want to say it. So, but I wanted more. So I went to day shift. I hated day shift. I'm never really good in the daylight with a lot of people. So I then went to 4 to 12, which was a perfect spot for me. So, and it was a busy shift. From there, I kept applying to the data center, where they had, back in the day, they had mainframes, tape division, they had the in and out group, they had communications, but no women were ever in the data center. So on my 4th time applying, they had to give it to me because I was the most qualified. And I started in and out, which is all the tapes come in and all the paper and the credit card statements and credit cards go out. And you had to be able to lift 80 pounds. So I went from that to go to the tape room where I would load these tapes on my arm. And I had these scars on my arm for literally 20 years where I'd load the tapes up. So I'd have to bring them to operations, unload old tapes, take all the tapes they already used, bring it back. So from that, I'd said, no, I want more. Computers were coming out. I bought a Tandy 1000 and I thought it was fascinating. So I took a job with the New York City Transit Authority running buses and trains, and I ran the help desk. And their computers had just come out. Still floppy disks, but computers with a hard drive. So from that, because help desk was a new position. So by 94, help desk was big. So I took a job with a software company in Florida making games for PCs, and I became a producer making video games. Then I went to Acclaim and I learned how to make console games. So I did games like NBA Jam and Madden football. And I was part of the group that did PC games, some console games. And we worked on a ton of licenses. From there, I realized that I could tell very early on when projects were going to go sideways.
Mm-hmm.
So I got hired to run the Microprose, which was an amazing studio back in the day. They were the cream of the crop as far as PC games. Civilization was the best-selling PC game of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was after Civilization, the head guy left and they fell into disrepair and they got sold to a company in California. And they called me up and said, you have 1 year. We'll pay you this much money if you can fix them. So I fixed them in 1 year. And then a year later, they were Studio of the Year at E3, which wasn't E3 at the time. It was CES. And that's when Mattel called me and said, how would you like to build a studio?
Oh, wow.
So I went to Mattel.
So, Amy, these are amazing. I probably played games that you worked on.
I definitely played Civilization.
So I guess what's two things I want to run by you. You've always had to come in and fix things. Number one, I want to hear how cool it is or how different it is to have that blank palette and you get to shape what Kilo Wheels is going to be and you don't have to fix it. But number two, here's your follow-up. I do want to hear, we don't get a lot of chances in life to take something that we really have a lot of passion for and do it a second time and not have to, I guess it's kind of the same question, not have to fix the things that we didn't like the first time. I just want to hear, eventually we'll get to it as well, what's going to be different on this Kilo Wheels versus what Redline Club members in the past experienced. So 2-part question, probably muddled my way through it, but take a stab at it.
I think, for lack of a better term, my Redline Club was everything I thought it could be and more. We did a lot for the collectors. We made specialty clothing. At every convention, I would host a party in my room for 150 people. I'd make a special car in a tiki mug, and I'd give them as parting gifts. I did as much as I could possibly do. I think the difference is Mattel is a corporation, and you can't really forget that. I worked around the system within a corporate environment, even though I would consider myself not corporate. And right now you have MBAs who run the brand, and they're very talented, but they don't stay. There aren't MBAs at Mattel who stay very long, 5 years, and then they're off to their next big gig. And they're very good at what they do. And some have the passion, but I don't think when you run a big company like Mattel, I don't know in today's world if you could ever recreate what I recreated 20 years ago, 23 years ago. I was in a different building. I wasn't part of the mainstream cog. I wasn't part of the Hot Wheel brand. I wasn't part of the design team. I was an anomaly that sat in another building that nobody cared about. But one day, the CFO showed up in my office and said, who are you and why is there all this money in your account? So I had to explain it all. But because nobody even knew who I was, because I was part of a defunct software group that was no longer making software. So it was almost like I think it was just divine intervention and luck that I was able to create it. And I think the collectors needed it. Mattel had never talked to them before for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad I did it. I'm a little sorry I left when I did, but I needed self-preservation. I had to go. But I always wanted to go back and do more. So, to your other point, I think I was not prepared to be approached to do something like Killer Wheels. A guy I had worked with a long time ago reached out and said, "How would you like to build something?" There's a factory in Asia who does private label and they make cars for everybody else, but they don't have their own die cast in the US. And I own a piece of the company, and my guys all own a piece of the company. That was mandatory. I said yes because I think it was the right time. There's a lot of die cast out there, but I think a lot of it is, I think some of it's really cool. I think some of the higher end stuff Mattel does is really great. I think even some of the new castings they do for the Redline Club is great. But I wanted to go back to being, no matter how big, because when I left the Redline Club, there were 50,000 members. So even though there were 50,000 members, I would be online at 2 in the morning talking to everybody personally. It didn't matter that I was an executive vice president. I felt that was my job to answer every single question. I had a team too, but I also felt it was important that they knew they could talk to me. And so I brought all of that to Killer Wheels. The cars will be numbered. The cars will be very high end. They'll have over 40 parts. They'll have opening parts, opening hoods, opening doors. We just showcased the Continental with suicide doors. So all 4 doors open and the hood opens. We have some other cars that I've seen for 60 years that never had an opening engine hatch. And I can't tell you what that is, but ours will now open with a detailed engine.
You can tell us.
No, I can't tell you.
We can try anyway. And Amy, this is perfect because I do want to talk about Kilo Wheels a lot, and we've only got a certain amount of time left. But just for those who don't know, Kilo Wheels, it's a project that involves Amy, this guy back here, Mr. Mike Zarnock, and that guy up here, Michael Geralda, and customizer Brian Pope. I haven't gotten anything from him yet. I need to get a custom of his to add to my wall over here, and something for you. But and I just want to kind of get in your own words. First of all, where did the name Kilo Wheels come from? And second, where I just am imagining the 4 of you in a booth sketching stuff out on a napkin, but I'm sure it didn't happen quite like that. So
It was pretty close.
Yeah.
It was pretty close. The factory in China has Kilo in their name. So we kept Kilo and came up with wheels. Brian actually came up with it. Brian designed the logo.
Mm-hmm.
The 4 of us every week we meet, and if we have to meet more, we do. But we meet, we discuss everything, we vote on everything. And unless there's a divide, I make the decision. But I mean, we're all actually in step with each other, which is pretty unusual, I'll be honest.
That's really cool. And that's just kind of spraying out one day because like you said, there's almost nobody that's doing anything that detailed, especially not in solid diecast. Maybe some of the resin people, but
well, in 164, true 164.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like I'm doing only Ford right now because I signed Ford first, and everybody else, I think Ford signed with me fast because I have a history with Ford and Shelby. But everybody else says, well, we have a lot of diecast people and you're a new company, so you have to jump through hoops. And I said, no problem. I will do whatever I need to do to get it done. So we're in final. I have deal memos with 4 companies and waiting on contract. I have 2 almost contracts ready to sign. So I'm hoping by this time next year, I'll have the full complement of diecast brands.
Yeah.
But mostly, I want to do also what the collectors want. But they don't want a lot of JDMs. I might do 1 or 2. But I might not do the ones everybody does. I might do the Mazda RX-7
Ooh.
where the headlights go up,
Mhm.
the doors open, the back opens, you can see the engine.
Don't touch that dial. Diecast Breakdown will be right back after these messages. Diecast Breakdown is produced in partnership with Twice Diecast and Driven Dreams Org on YouTube. Check out their channels in the video description and subscribe for more epic Diecast content.
Hey, this is Larry Wood.
This is Derek from Honest Diecast.
Hey, this is Chad Reed from Round 2.
This is Mike from Gaslands.
The SRT Jovita Show.
This is Champion DJ K.
This is Mad Vision here.
This is Diecast Dude.
And you're watching Diecast Breakdown.
And now, the thrilling conclusion of this week's episode of Diecast Breakdown.
You know, also, just to rewind back to Mattel, the last thing I did before I left was I did the Classics line, which were all Spectre Flame cars for mass. So because a lot of people said, you know, $25, it's a little out of my price range. So I built a line of collector cars where I changed the color every 200,000 pieces. They went to all the major retailers and they sold out. Every year, every color sold out. And on my third year is when I left. But Killer Wheels, it is geared strictly for the collector. The box is a new design. It has a flip open. The base pulls out so you can leave the car attached to the base. One of the things I didn't do at the Redline Club, but I am doing here is I'm doing a rewards program. So for every dollar you spend, you get $1 point. You get a point. At the end of the year, I will post what you can buy with your point.
I like it.
You know, maybe you get a 50% coupon, maybe you get a free car. But if you buy all the cars for the year, you get a free shelf display case.
Nice. Yeah, that's really nice.
So I'm trying to do a lot of stuff I didn't quite get to do at the Redline Club. And there's like a dozen other things we're still talking about. But our tagline says, for collectors, by collectors, because every one of us in this very small group are collectors of something. And so we know what people like us want.
Amy, you mentioned earlier that you can kind of see ahead in the future and you can see when things are starting to get off the rails really quickly. And I'm not asking for a whole lot of detail. Is there anything about Kilo Wheels that you don't want to see it head toward? Is there anything you want to steer clear of?
I want to make sure we don't get to, I think that once Kilo Wheels takes off, it'll be very successful. I think it will because I'm giving cars for practically the same price as I did 23 years ago, from $25 to $40. And the $40 group are either highly detailed cars or they're two-piece cars, like a car and a trailer. So I think we will be successful, but I just don't want to ruin that success by doing something. I don't want to have anybody in my group or partner group ever come up with an idea of how to make more money faster. I think we have to build this company the right way for as many years as it works and make the money we're supposed to make. If we make cars for hobby, there'll be different cars for hobby. They won't be these cars.
Good to hear.
And I want to go to hobby, but I don't want to go to hobby with a $40 car. I need to go to hobby with a car that's detailed and has opening parts, but that hobby can afford to buy and sell at a good price.
Oh, I love that. And I think that's important too. Like, I think having accessibility tiers, to get people interested is an important part of building a premium line. I mean, Tamika's done it. There's other brands that have done it. Tamika's the most famous because they've got a huge line of tiers all the way up to really fancy stuff. And your stuff is right up there. I think outshines most of the stuff that they're doing from what I've seen. So I'm really excited about it. And let's tell people again how they can get in on this. Cause I was like as soon as I heard about this, I was like, I got to get in on this. So I want to make sure a lot of people know how they can sign up and be part of this thing, because it's going to be really special.
Yeah, so we post a lot in our Facebook group, which is Killer Wheels, and we update everybody daily on Killer Wheels on the Facebook site. And we also have a website, which is www.kilowheels.com. And we have a bunch of forums on there as well. And we post videos and we ask people a lot of questions. What do you want to see? We're very involved with asking questions like, what do you want to see? What do you like? What don't you like? Don't be afraid to give us feedback. You can join both sites for free. And then if you like what you see, you can then upgrade to a paid membership, which is $45. You get a car, you get a membership kit, which includes, I think, a pin, a patch, a lanyard, and a car. I say car twice, car. So I think it's worth it. And then hopefully I'm mailing those out, knock on, hopefully in December. But it all depends on licensing. And the license that I'm waiting for, I've had a deal memo since April.
Yikes. Yep. 7 months.
Yeah. It's a long time.
Well, it never goes as easy as you think it's gonna, especially getting things off the ground for the first time. But I'm confident you guys will figure it out. There was, I know there was some initial hiccups with the site initially, which was a very good problem to have. Your site you got so much traffic. I think we crashed your site the first day.
You did.
Yeah,
You guys crashed my site.
I'm sorry about that, by the way.
That's okay.
I'm part of the problem. But
and I know because I was on there dealing with everybody's outreach for 16 straight hours.
Yeah, no, and again, to your credit, you handled that incredibly well. And I know, folks, she handled it. She was personally emailing me, got me sorted out. She did that for everybody else who had a problem. So thank you, Amy, for getting that going. And
to give credit to my guys, they did as much as they could, and they answered. I was handling the hard stuff because, because of digital age, patience is not a big thing. But I thought it was important they heard from me for everything. And my guys were doing all the stuff in the background, making sure they got all the information. We were working with the web team. I kept sending messages every 20 minutes, more bandwidth. Didn't I warn you? More bandwidth. So, but you know what? The website had some issues too, because Saturday night, we were supposed to open Sunday at noon. But Saturday night at 2 a.m, my time Eastern, I went in on a live site just to double check everything. But there were 8 people watching. So 8 people jumped on a site that was in admin mode. And they started placing orders. They changed the colors of the site. They broke the forums. They took down a whole bunch of things I didn't even realize by Sunday. We thought we fixed it. But by Sunday, when we realized there were so many things broken, we had to take it down again. But it was like deja vu, because that happened with Redline Club.
Oh yeah, well the Redline Club page still crashes from time to time, so nobody's perfect. But I mean, that's just growing pains from something big happening. So I wasn't surprised there were initial issues. That's just, I think, par for the course of launching anything. I mean, I know you've launched enough software products to know that it never works quite as it's supposed to on day one. But
I'm always amazed. I'm always amazed that it doesn't work right. I mean, we prepare for everything, and yet when you finally upload that game, you don't know what can happen. Because it's what happens. There's a bug, there's software. I remember I had a game once that was in QA for 6 months. And it was finally pretty much debugged of all what I would call number 1 bugs, hardcore bugs that would crash the system. And then we launched the game, and of course the game crashed. Why? Because a guy turned the headlights on in the car.
Yeah. Chuck will tell you, Amy, we've done several hundred shows, and we go out to Vegas this past year, and dadgummit, if Chuck isn't sitting on the floor plugging stuff in 1 minute before we go live every time we were scheduled to go on.
And they assure you everything is set up, everything's going fine. And it is like, nope, this is not fine. We are not okay. Things are not connected to other things. It's just,
I know.
Yeah. It's amazing we get anything done at all. But yeah, we're really excited about Kilo Wheels. Brian, we were delighted to talk with him, and we wish you guys nothing but the absolute best. Again, folks, check that out. Is that KILOWHEELZ.com?
Yes.
So check them out over there. Find them on Facebook. They're posting new stuff all the time, and check them out. It's, I think, going to be a great investment in your collection. If for nothing else, these things are going to be little rolling works of art. And I do love that they roll too. I love that is a priority.
They do.
So you're getting a incredibly premium product that will roll across your desktop and give you that satisfying little feel as it coasts along your little target.
I tell you, Chuck, the standard is getting really difficult to maintain for you guys. And kudos, Amy, for new diecast companies coming out. It is a daunting task to match what is out there now and do what you're doing, which is exceed what some of these companies are doing, which is, I mean, you're talking about photorealistic cars. You take a picture of it and you don't know if it's real or not.
Well, there was no reason for us to start a new company if we didn't feel that we could do things that others didn't do. That was sort of what we decided as a team. That even if it was a car that was done before, we had to do it better. And I mean, you see when the guys post pictures, exploded views of our cars, there are literally 40 to 55 parts on almost every car we're doing.
Yeah, they're crazy.
And we also made it good for customizers because we made the bottom screw so they could take them apart.
I mean, it's stuff like that, and it's the display cases. You know, it would have been good enough to give us a work of art in 1/64 scale, but then you go and make display cases that open up, slide out, make it easy. It's always the collector in mind, and I think people, once you start poking around on the Facebook site and the actual Kilo Wheel site, you're going to see a whole different attention and I don't know, acknowledgement of what is important to collectors. And we're not looking to be next to some of the main lines on the shelf. This is a whole different stratosphere.
Yeah, you know, I will say one great thing about coming back with Diecast. There were people in the Diecast community of the Redline Club who I would say became what I would consider friends over the years. And some I hadn't talked to in 20 years, but remembered who I was. And as soon as I came out with Killer Wheels, they flocked to the Facebook site. They were like, she's back. And I was like, that made me feel so good that they remembered me from 22 years ago, 23 years ago. I mean, in the day and age where you can't remember what you had for breakfast 2 days ago, they actually remembered that I did something for them nice 23 years ago. And I want to continue that, and I want my guys to always remember that is the most important thing, that long after we're gone, the kids you meet and the parents, those kids grow up. I'm talking to kids, not kids, young men and women now that were just little kids when I ran the Redline Club. You know, I used to do scavenger hunts for kids under 10 years old. And I would give them like die cast and little, somebody made me little like smiley faces with crowns because they called me Queen at the time. So I used to give the stickers out and they'd save them on their shirt for the whole weekend. And they're in their 20s now. And so it's nice to then meet them and they've signed up on Killer Wheels. I mean, for me, that is the best part of
Can't beat it.
It's the best part of the business.
Long live the Queen. Diecast royalty. We said it at the beginning.
Oh my, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know about that. Listen, you have to love what you do. I've been very lucky to always have a job that I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't hard. Every job I've ever had is always hard because
Sure.
you push the envelope and you try to do things nobody else does. But I've always loved every job. I remember when I was a kid, my dad said, you're going to school, be an accountant, be this. I want to be that's so boring. I'm blessed on so many levels that I'm not even sure why I've been so lucky to have such an amazing career in so many fields and just love every single thing I've ever done. I'm definitely blessed. There's no other word for it.
Yeah,
It's a good word.
absolutely. And a fantastic body of work. I mean, we didn't even touch on your time with Shelby, and I'd love to hear that because I'm sure there's some incredible stories there. But I know you're a busy person, so we want to make sure we respect your time. But again, folks, check out KILOWHEELZ.com. Check them out. Make sure you tell them we said hi over here from Diecast Breakdown. And again, Amy, thank you so much. We're thrilled to have you on, and really appreciate your time on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you both. I really, I'm honored you invited me. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Honors
And
all over here.
we are thrilled. We'll absolutely would love to have you back and swap some more car stories, big and small. So, all right. Well, folks, you've made it to the end of yet another episode of Diecast Breakdown. If you've made it this far, make sure you leave a little comment letting us know you're part of the closed down crew. We always appreciate hearing that people have made it to the end. And by the way, did you know that we're on Spotify and all the other podcast playing apps? So if you're tired of looking at our faces, which I don't know why you would be, you can watch us over on Spotify without the watching part. You can listen with your ear holes. You can also, if you're listening to us over there, did you know we have faces? You can come see that over at YouTube at Diecast Breakdown on the Diecast Media Network. Again, thank you so much for making it to the end of another episode. We want to thank our patrons again. If you want to know how you can join their ranks, you can visit diecastbreakdown.com. And don't forget, if you like what we do, to share it with a friend. That is the best way to help the show go and grow, and all the other words that rhyme with it. And as always, we want to thank you for coming along with us for the ride. So until next time, stay fresh, cheese bags.
Thanks for listening to Diecast Breakdown. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and tell a friend to listen in. Find Diecast Breakdown on your favorite social media platforms, or visit diecastmedianetwork.com to learn more about this and our other projects. Diecast Breakdown is a presentation of Flying Valiant and the Diecast Media Network.